Hi. After I put together my videos on farming, many people ask me, what is the crisis that you're alluding to? Well, history is about to repeat itself. Let's take a look. If we look at Wikipedia, farm crisis is defined as two events in our history. The 1920s, better known as the Dust Bowl, and the 1980s, better known as Reaganomics. These two eras seem to have some type of identical conditions before the crisis. I've now identified what I call the 5 steps to a farm crisis. 1. The adoption of a new technology that greatly increases yields. Crop prices rise substantially. Land prices shoot up. Farm debt then skyrockets as bankers give farmers more money to expand. And then what does the whole thing end was overproduction, causes crop prices to crash, leaving farmers hung out on debt, and foreclosures start. The 1910-1920 era was called power farming, when machines came into the business. Tractors, combines, threshers. Then after World War I, the demand for our grains greatly declined. There are stories of farmers delivering their grain, dumping it next to the pile they delivered the year before, next to the pile that they had delivered the year before that. Some areas had up to 3 years of grain stored on the ground because prices were so low, there was no market for it. We all know what then happened as farmers had to expand to try to pay their bills. We ended up with the Dust Bowl. Because of this environmental calamity, there was no incentive to really save this type of farming. As a result, the government did not step in, society did not step in, and many farmers then went bust. From 1970 to 1980 is the era of industrial farming, or some people call it chemical farming. The easiest way to see this is the adoption of fertilizers being put on the land. Also, as part of this industrial farming, many chemicals sprung out of the chemistry developed during the Vietnam War for pesticides, including herbicides and insecticides. The most famous became glyphosate, which was developed by Monsanto and trade named Roundup. Over 21,000 registered pesticides were made from 875 active ingredients during this time. As yields increased, so did land prices. And with those increased land prices, farmers were able to carry more debt. Overproduction, not just in the crop business, but also in the dairy business, caused prices to crash. As a result, farm income crashed. At this time, the government was facing inflation, so there was no incentive to try to save these types of farms by reducing interest rates. Many stories of farms that had been in business for the century had gone through the previous farm crisis. Now these farms were not able to make it through this crisis. Even demonstrations in Washington expecting again the government to save these family farms, which it would not. Society and government was not ready to step in and help this type of farming because it was not sustainable. So what's going on in agriculture today? Here we are. The next technology wave is coming in. There's a number of biological systems for working with the seeds, for the pesticides, and the fertilizers. All this kind of a system that's rolled up together to give you maximum yields. This era of farming is now called digital farming, where there's a lot of data being used to, again, maximize yields. Of course, the biggest unknown is still the weather. The weather drives many decisions in farming, and it still is a very unpredictable system. Prices now recently have started to rise in all of our traded commodities, almost a doubling of corn prices just in the last 2 years. That as prices go up, input costs seem to go up just as fast, so the margins on farming stay minimal all of the time. The suppliers of farmers price their products based on what the farmer can pay, not on what their costs to produce those chemicals are. Presently, what's going on is there's the billionaire land grab. Today, almost any land that is sold through auction, where people from all over the country are bidding on it. So these are people that are speculators and not farmers and have no plans to farm. Their long-term intentions is not clear at this point. Just 2 years ago, Sonny Perdue, when he was Secretary of Ag, made it clear to Congress when he said, farm debt has been rising more rapidly over the last 5 years. increasing by 30% to $409 billion, levels not seen since the 1980s. How do we compare our situation today with my 5 steps to a farm crisis? New technology, is it being adopted? Yes. The biotechnology systems, the genetic engineering systems. Crop prices are on the rise? Yes. Land prices shoot up? Yes, especially with all of the speculators and the auctions that are going on. And farm debt is skyrocketing, as we've just. So the last point that takes the farming to a crisis is overproduction, which causes then crop prices to crash. There's no out for the farmers because the only way to increase their income is to grow more corn or grow more product, but there's no value. As they grow more product, it only drives the commodity prices lower and lower. What farmers believe is we need all the corn we can grow. But do we? The biggest worry many farmers have is ethanol. Ethanol has been a big boost to the production of corn. If you drive around central Illinois, more than 50% of that corn that you see standing in the field goes to make ethanol. To be forecast in less than 10 years, more than 30% of the vehicles in the United States will be electric vehicles, directly leading to a 30% reduction in the need for ethanol. The climate will also affect this agricultural sector. We have a goal to reduce our greenhouse gas footprint by 26 to 28% by 2025. In the latest USDA study, 10.5% of greenhouse gases is related to agriculture. This is by anyone's estimate a very low number, but clearly some factor of changing the farming practices of agriculture will come in, which will cause yields as well to decline. We lead the world in cardiovascular disease, chronic respiratory diseases, and diabetes, which all can be related directly to our diet. Nutrient loss reduction is another factor that's coming into agriculture. A study done just now many years ago, more than 2,000 domestic wells reported nuisances or contaminants in their wells. Lost export markets, again, our trade deficit continues to increase. And at some point, this has to be addressed. As we've tried to address it, it leads to tariff wars. And those countries that were affecting put tariffs on our exports, which is mainly our commodity products. Another point is food safety. There's more and more data relating the use of glyphosate and genetically engineered corn with the death rates in the United States. Studies have not shown a direct linkage in these, but certainly long-term wise, there seems to be an indirect linkage between these situations. In the past, when there has been an overproduction, the government has made direct payments to farmers. Certainly the last 2 years have been tremendously large payments to farmers because of the overproduction. But will they continue to do this? Can farmers expect that this will continue to go on? So you can see there's a lot of comparisons between the power farming era, the industrial farming era, and now what we're in, the digital farming era. And now we're facing not just one, but both of the barriers for why government was not interested in saving this type of farming at those times. It's clear to help these small farms, we need to change this model. Regenerative agriculture is a conservation and rehabilitation approach to food and farming systems. It saves the soil, it reduces input costs, but unfortunately, yes, yields do go down, and if farmers are so heavily leveraged with debt, they cannot afford to have lower incomes. Something has to help them move to the next system that's sustainable, that's better for them, it's better for the environment, and it's better for all of us with a healthier diet. One interesting thing is I've sent links to my videos to all of our U.S. senators in the 5-state region, the House of Representatives that govern us, as well as 20 administrators at the University of Illinois, including the chancellor who claims to have an ag background. Not one of them replied to me when I did this in December. I resent them in February. Again, not one of these 50 emails were replied to. I'm wondering, why will no one talk about this? Why is this not important? Why doesn't our community care? Why doesn't someone care? The Farm Bill comes up for renewal next year. We as citizens need to move that Farm Bill forward. We need to move it towards the future. As these trends start to reduce the need for corn and soybeans, we need to be ahead of that trend and encourage it and not be reactive to it and continue to subsidize it
when it's no longer needed. Let's care. Let's change this model.